Oklahoma 2023 is Miss Norman Sunny Day.
She's worked as a teacher in the 5th and 6th grades, a passion she plans to continue to pursue as Miss Oklahoma. Her platform is called Ready, Set, Go. It's a curriculum program she created.
That teaches empathy, respect, it teaches compassion, it teaches things like financial literacy or even how to control your anger or emotions.
Day says her platform is personal after she grew up in a poor and traumatic household. She wants to use her program to improve the lives of as many Oklahoma children as possible.
I also want to do professional developments this summer to teach teachers how to implement this in their classroom as well and offer this curriculum to Title I schools for free. Hello everyone, how are you guys? Well, I appreciate you guys having me here, and that last worship song really ties into what I'm actually going to be talking about today, and that's really putting your faith in God and God's plan and God's timing, which is ultimately what led me to becoming Miss Oklahoma and being here today. So as you saw, my name is Sunny Day, and in June, I was crowned Miss Oklahoma 2023. And I made history for two reasons. I am the oldest woman to ever be crowned Miss Oklahoma and any title holder in the Miss America organization. But I'm also the only Miss Oklahoma who is going to continue to work full-time while I'm living out the role of Miss Oklahoma. So my journey to becoming Miss Oklahoma was very unique compared to others. So can anyone in this room guess how many times I lost Miss Oklahoma? That would be a lot. It was pretty close. I lost 10 times, so I've been competing for a very long time. I lost 10 times, and when I competed in 2021, I made 4th runner-up, but it was my last time to compete because at the time, the age limit was 25 years old. And I was 25, and so I hit the age cutoff, and I remember walking off the stage feeling so defeated that this chapter of my life and this journey was done, and the dream of ever thinking about or being Miss Oklahoma was gone. And so I continued to live my life as a full-time teacher at Western Heights, serving as a big sister. I'm the oldest of 5. And then I got an email in February, just a few months ago, that they raised the age limit to 28 years old, right before my 28th birthday. And it sounds silly, but this was something I prayed for. But this was a prayer that I was like, this isn't going to happen. They don't change rules. This organization's been the same for 100 years. Well, they did change the age rules, and I qualified. So it was right before my 28th birthday. I looked at my mom and I said, I have 2.5 months to prepare. I have no money because I'm on a teacher's salary, so I can't afford a fancy dress. I can't afford a coach. And she said, but you can be yourself. And you've been doing this for so long that you can just stay true to yourself for once. And so I remember asking my little brother, I said, as someone who's watched me compete for years, what have I been missing? How can I do it this time? And he said, you've always kind of made it about yourself and never about really thinking about why you're doing it in the first place. And so with that, I told myself, I'm going to stay true to God, and I'm going to build my relationship with God for these next 2.5 months to make sure that this is for me. And if it's not, I'll at least be at peace if I lose. So I did just that. I competed throughout the entire week of Miss Oklahoma. I held a Bible study for all other 41 contestants every morning. And at the end of the night, after every time I competed, usually I would go back to my hotel room and watch myself compete and overanalyze myself before the next day. But I went back and I read my scripture, and then I went to bed peacefully. And I won on June 10th, 2023. And it was a huge moment for me because I didn't think that this was going to happen. I never assumed that someone that came from a background like mine would ever become Miss Oklahoma. When I saw Miss Oklahomas, I didn't see girls like me. And what I mean by that is, for the first 9 years of my life was sunshine, and it was rainbows, and it was like a normal upbringing. But right before my 10th birthday, my father developed an addiction, and he left my mom, my siblings, and I, and he ending up on the streets homeless for the past 15 years. And I took it upon myself to continue to take care of him. I still checked in on him when I was able to drive. I would stop by wherever he was, and I would feed him and take care of him and take him to recovery centers and do what I could to help build him up and to make him feel like he wasn't alone through the struggle. But also, when he left, we lost our home, and my mom had to immediately go to start working 3 jobs. And so I had to grow up really fast. So So at the age of 14, I started working full-time at Brahms. Every day after school, I would go to work, and I would stay at work until 10 p.m. Then I would walk home and go to school and then do it all over again. So I had to grow up really fast. I didn't have nice things. I had to take care of my mom, who was struggling at the thought of my dad leaving, and I had to take care of my dad because at the time I was more of an adult than he was because he was struggling and he was sick. And so this really led me to thinking about who I wanted to be when I grew up and what I wanted to become. And as much as I loved my parents, I didn't want to end up struggling like them. And I said the common denominator here is that neither of them finished high school. And so I took it upon myself to really lean in on my teachers and to lean in on the counselors at school. And I ended up becoming the first person in my family to ever graduate from high school and went on to get a full ride scholarship at the University of Oklahoma and became the first person in my family to ever graduate from college as well. So education was really pivotal for me. It was a huge moment in my life, and it really changed the trajectory of my life. But I got a degree in business and communications, and I thought I wanted to work in fashion because I am a pageant girl, so I assumed that's what I should do. So I moved to New York City for 10 days, and I said, no ma'am, not for me. We're going back to Oklahoma where the people are nice and it's not as crazy. So I came back to Oklahoma. When I came back, there was the teacher walkout. There was a bunch of teachers who were leaving the classroom because the pay was rough and things, just being a teacher is not easy. So if anyone in this room is a teacher, you know that it's hard. And so I was at the Capitol with a former high school teacher of mine, and she looked over at me and said, this is what you should do. You grew up raising your siblings. You helped me as a teacher assistant when you were in high school. You were the cheer captain. She was like, I think that you could take care of kids. So I took my teaching certification exams. I passed them, and I signed up after researching different school districts. I live in Norman, but I really felt called to teach at this school district called Western Heights. It is a school, 100% of the students are on free and reduced breakfast and lunch program because they themselves grew up in poverty. A lot of my students are homeless or struggle with parents who are incarcerated or living on the streets, much like my own father. And it was a huge challenge to take on, especially as someone who was not equipped or didn't have the same type of training as teachers who go through to get their degree. But I knew that I loved kids, and I knew that I had a story to tell. So I signed up, and they threw me in the classroom, and it was very challenging and very confusing, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the kids, and I got more and more comfortable being vulnerable and sharing my story and getting to relate to the kids and realize that that's my strength, is connecting with people. And these kids are much alike, like they're just like me and my siblings, and I have so much to offer them. So 6 years later, I'm still at the exact same school. I have taught almost every position in the school, and I have worked, been in 7 different classrooms, so I move classrooms every year. So I have taught 6th grade English for 3.5 years. I moved on to teach 5th grade English and social studies, and this year, with the busy role of Miss Oklahoma, I took on the district emergent bilingual coordinator position, and so I help teach students that come from other countries and do not speak English emerge into both the country and the language as well. And so education is not only important to me, but I try to instill the power of education in my students. And what I was seeing is I was seeing kids that were misbehaving. I was seeing kids who were sleeping through my lessons or kids who had poor attendance. And I said, the problem here is not that these kids are bad. They're just like me. They're not being taken care of on a social, emotional, or physiological level, and they need to be. So their needs are not being met. They're not being fed, which is why they're sleepy in the mornings. They're not being taught how to handle their anger or the emotions because that's not being taught at home. And I know exactly what that feels like. And for me, while I was a tough kid and I had to grow up fast, I was also very resentful. I remember the biggest question that I would ask myself as a little girl is, why? Like, why did God give me this life? Why is my dad struggling and I can't help him and I can't take care of him? Why is my mom having to do all this on her own? And why did I have to grow up so fast? And I wish that I would have known as a kid what I was going to be doing today, because I realized that it truly was all a part of God's plan. I wouldn't have become Miss Oklahoma if I didn't have the story that I had to tell, and I didn't have the empathy or the compassion because of the things that I had to witness as a child. And I'm so glad now that I went through everything that I did, because it's made me a stronger teacher, it's made me a stronger Miss Oklahoma, but it's made me a stronger human being as well. And I'm also glad that I trusted in God's timing, because I'm also glad that at 25 years old, I didn't win Miss Oklahoma in 2021 or all of the years prior, because the life experience and the struggle and the grief that I've gone through the past 3 years have led me to being able to speak about more issues that I even knew existed. Right after I competed in 2021, my grandmother passed, or she overdosed, and then I had to take on the role of power of attorney. And I took care of her, and it was during COVID. So at the end of COVID, you couldn't go into a hospital to take care of her. So I was outside of the hospital every day after I left my classroom to take care of her. And so as Miss Oklahoma, I wouldn't have had the time to take care of my grandmother. So it's like God knew that my family needed me, and that was not my time. So if there's anyone in this room who has struggled, or who is currently struggling, or will struggle, because all of us will. That's what makes us human, and that's what makes us all one collective unit. Just know that God really does have a purpose. He does have a plan, and He does have a reason for putting you through the things that you do. And I hope that everyone in this room is inspired to, no matter what your pain is, to turn that pain into purpose. Because it has led me to developing this curriculum called Ready, Set, Go. And SET is an acronym for Support, Encourage, and Teach. And I have created a curriculum that teaches children how to be empathetic, how to have teamwork, how to have communication skills. I've built financial literacy lessons. I've taught them how to fill out job applications, and we have mock interviews at school as well. And so I get to teach these kids these skills because the reality is, and I've had to accept it, is that not all of them will graduate from high school or go on to be in college, and that's okay, because that's their life path and that is their choice. And for some of them, that's not their choice. And that's why I had to try to develop this, because I want them, no matter where they're going in life and no matter where they come from, they have the skills to be a civilized human being and to be as professional and to be able to get a job and have those tools in their toolbox to be successful, no matter who they are or where they're going. So I hope, again, that everyone in this room, that you can find it in your heart to trust in God's plan, to trust in God's timing, and to find a way that no matter what you're struggling with, to turn your pain into purpose. Thank you all so much.